I'm going to make two bold statements. Let's see if you can guess which one's true. The first one, there is less rental stock in the market because landlords are selling up. The second, landlords are expanding their portfolios and snapping up properties quickly. Ready? Well, both are true. And I know a lot of people are confused about this, and this is why I'm going to break down in this video as to why small landlords are selling up, who's taking their place, but also what's the impact in the rental market for both investors, landlords and tenants alike. Make sure you stay tuned because this isn't just a rental market update, it's a shift and a change in the way that the rental market is evolving. Let's take Mark as an example, a landlord I spoke to recently. He purchased his properties back in 2012 and he rode the wave of high rental yields and low interest rates. But most importantly, he made the most of beneficial tax relief that were available to landlords back then. Fast forward to today, the abolishing of Section 21, the Renters' Rights Bill, high interest rates, and recently he also had to spend thousands of pounds on upgrading his EPCs, and he's decided to sell up. But guess what? A limited company landlord has already offered on both of his properties. And this comes at a time when rental yields are at record high. And some have called the recent government budgets the death of the buy-to-let industry. But the reality is a little bit more complicated. Yes, on one hand, smaller landlords are selling up in droves. In fact, in the month of March, supply of rental properties was down a third year on year. Now that increase in interest rates, but also the disappearing tax relief and the incoming legislation was already creating a hostile environment for landlords. But the recent budgets have definitely hit the accelerator. Fears of an imminent hike on capital gain tax triggered what can only be described as a fire sale. In fact, 20% of properties on the market for sale back in October were ex-rental properties. It could be that history is going to repeat itself because the recent actions of the Labour government has actually suggested that wealthy people are leaving the UK. That now leaves the government having to fill in a black hole. And a lot of landlords are spooked. They're saying that there's going to be an imminent hike of capital gain tax in the next budget. What's your opinion on this? Leave me a comment below if you're a landlord investor. Are you selling up or are you holding? It is challenging to generate sympathy for landlords in an overheated market. Let's face it, landlords are to blame for the high rent, for the high house prices, and also first-time buyers not being able to get onto the property ladder, right? Well, the reality is the industry does need a healthy, functioning private rental sector. And buy-to-let isn't dying, it's evolving. And if you're finding this video helpful, smash that like button. It really motivates me in pushing more of these videos out there. The buy-to-let boom was once a no-brainer for investors, particularly around about the 2015 era. So you had low interest rates, but also you had 1 in 5 families renting properties. A lot of investors, especially with those interest-only mortgages, were having a healthy cash flow. Until 2017, landlords can treat their properties like a business. So they can deduct costs from their property, including those mortgage interests. They will be taxed on profit, not on revenue. And this made it very attractive for landlords, but it also meant that a reset was inevitable. In response, the government rolled out major reforms, including removing tax reliefs, increasing regulation, but also slashing those deductions from their so-called business of having properties. Then came rising interest rates, making borrowing more expensive. Add to that more than 170 legislation in the rental market. Well, what was before a passive income now became a little bit more proactive, including some of these other roadblocks. Mandatory improvements to EPC ratings, updated fire, electrical, gas safety standards, and legal obligations around GDPR, tenancy agreements, and mold prevention. And we're seeing even heavier regulations in other parts of the UK, including but not exclusively Wales and Scotland, where landlords are having to have the burden of heavier admin, but just overall they feel that they have more risk. So it's no wonder we're seeing these smaller landlords choosing to exit the market. And yet we're not seeing the death of buy-to-let. In fact, we're seeing a shift or the type of investor that's decided to stay in the market. A record number of landlords, now fewer than 88%, have no confidence in the market. Here in London, it's up to 90% that have no confidence. And this data comes from the flat sharing website Spare Room, where it says that almost a third, that's 29% of landlords, plan on reducing the size of their portfolio this year, whilst 4% prepare to switch their property to a short-term holiday rental. In London, this is more acute, with 42% of landlords claiming they plan to exit the market in 2025. And just looking at this survey, landlords, what are your plans for 2025? So look at this. Plan to leave the rental market, 34% across the UK. I'm planning to reduce my portfolio, 29%. I'm not planning on any changes, 28%. I'm not planning to expand my portfolio, 45%. And plan to invest on holiday short-term rentals, that's 3.8%. And looking at this table of the survey provided, why landlords have got no confidence in the rental market, right up there is the Renters' Rights Bill. I'm quite surprised actually to see that tax is probably around about 4 down. But right at the bottom is a decline in property value, which shows that investors and landlords still believe that there is value in property. It's just how you make it profitable throughout the way in terms of then getting that capital growth. You know, a good percentage of viewers that come back to view my content haven't subscribed. Now, I promise you, if you subscribe, I'm going to work even harder to make sure that you have the content, whether you're an investor, seller, buyer, or tenant. So make sure you smash that subscribe button to get more information. Larger and more professional landlords are stepping in to fill in the void of smaller landlords exiting the market. And they're not only more equipped to navigate the market and the industry changing, but they are also more strategic, looking at HMOs, holiday homes, and even long lets and student lets. But let's look at the report that backs this up. 60% of landlords intended to buy in the next 12 months plan to do so via limited company structure. Limited company ownership has surged from 36% Q1 2020 to 66% in Q1 2025. And landlords using a limited company own an average of 14.6% of properties versus 5.2% for those who don't. And now the trend of owning properties in a limited company is no longer a niche. It's the new normal. In fact, if you're thinking of buying a property and having it in your personal name, that's an investment property, that is a buy-to-let, that is seen as financial suicide. So these new breed of landlords own multiple types of property, HMOs, holiday lets, unit blocks, embrace specialist strategies. 1 in 5 now own at least one HMO. This rises to 1 in 4 among portfolio landlords. Stay profitable despite cost pressures. 17% large profit, 67% small profit. And they're enjoying strong yields as well. The average yield at the moment is 6.3%, just below that 10-year high. And it shows that these landlords are also prepared to weather the financial environment, with 38% of these landlords saying they are looking to remortgage or do a product transfer in the next 12 months. And portfolio landlords expect to refinance an average of 3 mortgages. 75% will opt for fixed rates, 32% for 2-year deals, and 35% for 5 years. As Grant Hendry explains, incorporation is no longer a niche strategy, it is mainstream. Moreover, these professional landlords are also prepared in investing in high quality homes, but also sustainable. But also, they are more efficient and more responsive with tenants, and prepared to work with advisors to make sure they get the right mortgage moving forward for their investments. But overall, they're also working with professional property advisors, getting expert advice on refinancing, retrofitting, and growing their portfolios. This creates opportunity not just for tenants, but for lenders, agents, and advisors who understand this new professionalized sector. So in conclusion, the small-time casual landlords are being kicked out of the industry by the ever-evolving government intervention. Some smaller landlords have evolved as well. That's something to say. They know that incorporating is part, it's not the only thing that you need to do, but it's part of the evolution. But remember, having 1 or 2 properties within that structure is not going to be viable either. So if you're a small landlord thinking of scaling, you need to scale a lot more than just a couple of properties. But we are also witnessing, of course, those professional landlords who already have a number of properties, and they are also scaling up. So is buy-to-let dead? No. It's evolving, it's shifting. And if you don't want to shift with the market, well, then exit, which is exactly what the government wants.